Rutherford Issues with Brian Barrett on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at WGNSradio.com.
Rutherford Issues is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric, who reminds us better communication leads to better service. Keep your contact info current at mte.com so that you never miss out on an update on billing or local outages. Well, we're headed to Nashville, the state's capital. That's where we find State Representative Mike Sparks, who is busy legislating, I guess, right?
Yeah, Brian, I just got through with session. We didn't have a long day and just got a few more meetings up here. Got a meeting. I'm on finance, so we've got a meeting about broadband, and we've made great strides with broadband in our not only our county but the state overall, and especially in the rural areas. I know it's been a big issue for folks like Predatory and Jim Thompson, Baker Rayburn, and others, in Rutherford County to try to get it out there to everyone. And so we got a joint meeting with Finance, Ways and Means at 12 o'clock today.
Getting out to everyone, is it going to be free?
Well, we've got someone's going to pay for access, whether it's United Communication or
right.
Comcast or others. But the state is. We've spent a lot of money. I'm looking through here, $781 million worth of grants at state and federal funding for broadband, and so it's just under $1 billion. And they're trying to get 100% coverage. It's I don't think we'll ever reach that because you've got some very rural areas, and the cost to get to some of these isolated areas is going to be pretty expensive. But that's what we're meeting on this for today. You may, if you want to cover it, you'll probably be the only reporter, if you will, to cover this. You can pull it up. If folks are interested, just pull it up online. They can watch the meeting and to see the discussion.
Well, interesting thing on that, you say that, probably never going to reach 100%. I wonder if they said that back in the 1800s, and so when we were, not just telephone, electricity,
Well, everything has a cost to it, and that's what I was telling. Every issue up here has a cost. It's like, you want to help everybody, but we don't have the money. It's like that's really pretty much the bottom line up here. It's all about money. I hate to say that, but it's all about money, and you can only do so much. And whether it's, it sounds great if every teacher could make 80,000 or 100,000, every trooper could make 100,000, but that's unsustainable. It's just it's not feasible. But we have to live within our means, just like residents have to, just like WGNS has a budget. But I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, but you got to be not a pessimist, but a realist.
Well, I'm just thinking about, in 100 years, are the history books going to reflect, what was done to get certain things, and like we had with electricity back in the day, are we going to look at, getting internet and then all of these things, and then AI, how are we going to reflect on that? What is it going to look like in the future? That kind of stuff.
Well, it's kind of ironic you're mentioning, years from now. I was talking with a black Democrat out of Memphis, and we were in the little break room, and we were just talking. He knows I don't care about all this predatory, interest, and I think it's evil, and I think it's a modern day William Wilberforce issue. And it's when people don't know who William Wilberforce is, he's a lawmaker that ended slavery in Great Britain 30 years before we did, and it's just oppression, And so the guy made the comment. He said, man, that's you've been on that for years. He said, dude, everybody needs an issue that they've championed. And, he's big on, cosmetology, barbershop, and other issues, music. He's out of Memphis, And another lawmaker, he pointed to him. He said, man, that guy's always on the, Second Amendment. And but I thought I thought, well, I appreciate those kind words because it is often lonely. I don't have a myriad and army of lobbyists up here, advocating in sync with me on these issues. But you look at William Wilberforce, that guy, if you study it, he was alone trying to fight slavery, but eventually they ended slavery, and sadly he passed like 2 or 3 weeks after they ended slavery in Great Britain. I mean, that ties into Amazing Grace, John Newton, folks that may not know their history. There's a nice movie about it. If anybody wants to see it, you can pull it up on YouTube, Amazing Grace. Well, ironically, that was my bill, making official state hymn. But, it gets a little, it kind of wears you down sometimes because, I had that predatory lending bill that failed in the Senate. I've still got it up, but, if it fails in the Senate, it ain't going to go nowhere. So I'm still hoping to talk about it, but hell, when you think it's like one man, like Don Quixote fighting windmills, it gets a little disheartening. But then I look back at William Wilberforce, and it gives me hope. Look back at David in the Bible; he was by himself, but it gives me hope, and hope's a real word. And you just got to keep fighting, and that's where I think faith comes in on these issues, because you do want to help everybody out there, but it's not realistic to get everything accomplished in one legislative year. So it's like the broadband. We made great strides on that, but it goes back to folks like Pettis Reed, who've been a champion, or Jim Thompson, or Baker Rayburn in Smyrna. I mean, some of these people that have just stayed on me and others to get it done, and working with Middle Tennessee Electric and others,
Yeah. Your comment about, for those folks who know their history,
yeah.
That's just like, saying for those folks who know the sky's blue.
Well, not everybody knows William Wilberforce, though. They don't know that story.
I know, but that's not all of history. I mean, it's so vast what history could be. I mean, that is of interest, and you know that because that interests you, right?
Well, it should interest all of us. As Christians, we should all, be concerned. Not only, we learn from the past, and I just had a reporter come up to me just now. I hate to say he's a left-wing kind of blogger, but the guy's got some skills, Justin Canoe, whether you like him or not. The guy's got skills, and he asked me about Iran, what's going on? And I'm not recording or anything. And I was like, my friend got killed in Iraq, Freddie Hahn, and it's always played on me, because his son, Spencer, had been on the radio with us, hangs out with me. Hindsight's 20/20, but I don't know. I get so torn on some of these issues that we see. I hope we're doing the right thing, and but you see, men and women lose their lives, and but looking back at World War II, I think America did the right thing. My dad fought in World War II. I had a great uncle killed in the Holocaust. He served in the British Army. My mom always told me that story, and so, anyways, it's just. You hope you make the best decisions, but I think that's where faith comes in. You have to pray for wisdom and discernment that we make the best decisions. Back at William Wilberforce, he made the right decision. I mean, he fought. He was by himself, but I think the moral of that story is you can't give up. You got to continue to champion and fight and rally other people. And I appreciate y'all giving me a nice, at least reporting on it, because like I've said, Phil Williams is not going to touch that story. Because they're in on the game. I mean, if you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars off an industry, why do you want to go talk about the evils of it? Because you're part of it. And I think it was Dr. King that said something it was Edmund Burke that said those that see evil and do nothing about it, you're pretty much a part of it, and but you can't give up. And I mean, if we lose faith in this country, if we lose the Christian values, and I'm not saying I know people can take issue with that, but if you follow the template of Jesus and his teachings, he talked about this kind of stuff, talked about oppression and turning over the money changer tables and the excessive, usuries in the Bible, I think 21 times, but this predatory lending, to me, is an issue we should talk about. 300-something% interest, repoing people's cars and bait and switch and lying to them, and like that lady, Miss Helen, that I made that video about. That's evil. It's black and white. It's evil. There's no goodness out of what became of that, and that's happening across our state,
Do you think the average person that maybe considers themselves a person that's pretty good on history, do you think that average person there would know who Samson Keeble is?
Nope, they don't. No, speaking of Sam's Key, we done that nice tour of the day. I'm glad you segued into that because we didn't set this up. You just bringing it up.
No, I'm just trying to make a point about history. History is good, but you're not going to know all of it. And so saying part of history and that being part of history, I mean, it's good to know things and that for that to be knowledge, but for everybody to know it, know. But anyway.
Well, I think the story of Samson Keeble is extraordinary because, he was born at Old Jefferson. We did a tour out there. I had a TDEC official. I've got an investor who grew up out there. Mr. Charles Jones said he put up $2 million if I can get the state to do something. Well, the state's been out there, and they're at least discussing it. We got to start the conversation somewhere. And, they displaced a lot of people out there as the original county seat, and Trail of Tears come through there. I think it's a great story. I think you got all the elements, and it's a beautiful area, too. Rick Hall's been passionate. Roger Thomas, a lot of people passionate about it. Some of the folks, go back to that community. They're folks. Jenny Williams, went to school out there. But Samson, if you go back and look at his life, he had mentors. He had white mentors in Murfreesboro that mentored him, that encouraged him. And think about it would be like to be the first black lawmaker in the General Assembly after the Civil War. You talk about loneliness. Think about what that would be. And it looks like he tried to run good bills, but then they've changed some things in the law where he wasn't able to get elected again. But he tried. But I think it's an awesome story. He was born free, by the way. His cousin was Marshall Keeble, a famous minister. And it's really neat history that's out there. I always heard the story of Old Jefferson that the town was underwater. That's when I grew up. I always heard there was once a city outside of Smyrna that was underwater. Well, it's not underwater. It's still high and dry. But history is important. I mean, that's when I shared it to all the protesters at MTSU. I told you the main protester wanted to know more. He said, "Can I be your intern?" He ended up giving me an award. The Alphas, the black fraternity, gave me an award, and it was just having a conversation with these guys.
Well, we got just a couple of minutes left. What's been going on? I know that you were busy passing a bill today, right?
Well, I had it was a resolution on mental health, and I had that father reach out to me. We live for Riv. He found his daughter. Sadly, she hung herself in her own closet out in the Winchester area. So I'm trying to kind of raise awareness of the seriousness of mental health with these young people, and the social media has really. I think been a significant increase. There's a nice book out there called The Anxious Generation by author Jonathan Haidt, if anybody wants to look at this. But we passed that. I'm going to try to have the family up here. And the Jason Foundation, they've helped me. They help train teachers to look for signs of mental health and to bring awareness to the increase of suicide among young people. It's not just young people; it's older as well. We had one lawmaker, his own father took his own life a year and a half ago. But one thing, NES come by here. I've had an issue with NES for years. Really just saying Middle Tennessee Electric needs to take over the North Rutherford County.
Well, Jason Cole, by the way, was just up here on the roundtable with Dr. Krause this morning talking about some of that stuff.
Yeah, and they were very gracious to come over, but I was telling them the lack of communication. I was simply want a simple street light in a dangerous little area over there by the bridge, the tunnel, railroad track, and over there. There's about 50 men and women over there in I guess you call it halfway house, whatever you want to call it, Right Road Ministries. It's a dangerous little area, and they gave me a number for a guy to call. The guy said, and I called him. He said, "Mike, Laverne." He's Mike. I've been gone from Laverne for 5 years. And I was telling them, I said, what if I'm a mother or grandmother raising kids and my electricity's off, or, it's freezing cold or it's hot? It's just, you would think connectivity, NES connectivity, but that's always stuck with me, and we still don't have a street light. It's just, that's what kills me with the government. I mean, the private sector, they've done it. Now, Middle Tennessee Electric.
But NES is not government, though, is it? Isn't it a privately run company?
Well, quasi-government, I guess you can say, utility company. But Middle Tennessee Electric does a great job. I mean, even David Gammon, David in Laverne has NES. He said, Mike, I wish we had NES. I mean, wish we had Middle Tennessee Electric. If you have Middle Tennessee Electric, you'd also have the opportunity to have United Communication, which is great. And even my Larry Maxwell, I hope you don't mind me sharing him. He used to be a commissioner for Ag. he's our Sunday school teacher, and watch my kids and watch my grandbabies a little bit at Parkway Baptist. But he asked me the other day, he said, "Man, we wish we had Middle Tennessee Electric." So I was talking to them about that and what we could do to improve. But that was a catastrophic storm. The stats they gave me here is there's 11,730 NES customers. Customers without power was 2,748. Logistically, it's going to be a difficult process. But the thing I'm going to get out of this, which is not hypothetical, it's a fact. They're going to be communicating with me and Laverne better, and Robert Stevens and Jason Cole. So that's a fact that's coming out of this. So the good thing about trials and tribulations is usually there's a positive outcome and a learning process. But I'm under the impression that I just wish Middle Tennessee Electric, took over the north end of the county, just like they took over Murfreesboro Electric and Power. And I think that it's been a win-win for the ratepayers.
The likelihood of that happening probably very low, wouldn't you think?
Well, it's low, but you got to start the conversation somewhere. I've got this budget request that I'm doing, and I'm trying to get I got an idea for a documentary with MTSU and Japan and Tennessee, and specifically Smyrna and Rutherford County. I think we have an awesome story about Japan and Tennessee coming together, the Nissan plant, other companies. You've got Seward Air Force Base, and reconciliation. And we have 200 Japanese companies in Tennessee. I think it's an awesome story. Pitched it to the Film Commission. In fact, they're coming by here in a little bit to meet with me again. Pitched it to Tom Neff at MTSU. Pitched it to Stuart McCord, ECD. Pitched it to Bill Haggerty, Senator Haggerty, Marsha Blackburn. They all seem to like the idea. So, all I can do is try. And if I don't get it done this year, don't get it funded this year, I'll try next year. But I think we have an awesome story.
Yeah. Let me ask you this real quick. Jason on the show said, if NES, if MTE can't take over for NES in Laverne at least needs a representative on the NES board. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, exactly. I think they agreed with it. But it's like, okay, how much percentage-wise? We do need representation, and there's no doubt. So, but we also got to communicate, and it's so ridiculous when you have such a huge company that I just asked for a simple contact, and their records are so outdated. It's a great example of the disconnect that I often talk about that often exists in government, whether it's a DMV or other areas. But all we can do is be champions to improve these things where we see problems and disconnect, and not just complain about them, but try to rectify it and fix it.
Mike, appreciate you joining, and Sunday night, 5 o'clock, we'll see you then. Don't forget, you got to move your clocks forward this weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
All right, man. That's State Representative Mike Sparks joining us from the state capitol in Nashville, and that is going to do it for our time here today, my friends. If you missed part of the program, we'll have the podcast up real soon at WGNSradio.com under podcasts. Look for Rutherford Issues. Until next time, take care out there.